Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever has called on the European Commission to provide answers and guarantees to the legality of using frozen Russian assets to loan Ukraine.
Europe's steel industry has said its survival is at stake due to both US tariffs and Chinese imports. 2 people have been killed and multiple injured in a car and knife attack at a synagogue in Manchester as worshippers gathered to celebrate Yom Kippur. Can Israel's military technology be decoupled from Europe's?
Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever has called on the European Commission to provide direct answers to the legality of using Russia's frozen assets to issue Ukraine a €140 billion loan. The idea was first proposed by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen last month, an idea set to test the limits of international law. The audacious plan would entail using up to €185 billion in Russian assets held on Belgian territory. But de Wever wants guarantees that if it goes wrong, Belgium won't be the only country liable for repayment, damages, or litigation.
I don't want to give a dime back to Mr. Putin, and I understand why everybody's looking at a huge amount of money. If you look at the sovereign assets, 170, in other countries it's also a lot. We are ready, willing and able to go forward. It's no problem. But I want answers on every question I asked. I want the maximum of legal certainty, I want solidarity, and I want transparency on the situation in the other countries. I don't think this is an unreasonable position.
Under the scheme, Russian funds frozen by Europe's Central Securities Depository, Euroclear, would transfer the money to the Commission, which would then be gradually issued in loans to Ukraine over time. Ukraine would then be asked to repay the loan only after Russia agrees to compensate for damages, hence the name reparations loan. The Commission would then repay Euroclear, who in turn will reimburse Russia, completing the circle.
2 people have been killed and multiple injured in a car and knife attack at a synagogue in Manchester as worshippers gathered to celebrate Yom Kippur. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the attack horrific and thanked emergency services for their efforts. At least 3 members of the public are in serious condition following the attack. A third person, believed to be the suspect, has been shot by police officers. It is unclear whether or not he is dead. Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year in Judaism, marked by fasting, prayers, and synagogue services.
Israeli forces stopped dozens of ships carrying humanitarian aid for Gaza, organizers of the flotilla said on Thursday morning. Some remaining boats were still on their way to the war-ravaged enclave at that time. The group had been live-streaming its mission before the connection of some of its boats was disrupted. The group reported Israeli forces illegally boarded its vessels. Israel had previously warned the ships to turn back and said it could deliver the aid through different channels, but the flotilla remains undeterred and emphasized the peaceful nature of its mission. Israel's interception sparked widespread outrage, with protests erupting across the globe. Thousands took to the streets in countries including Italy, Belgium, Greece, Spain, Turkey, Argentina, and Colombia.
Spain has imposed a total arms embargo on Israel, but the suspension of imports is causing problems. Madrid mainly imported ammunition, rocket launchers, anti-tank missiles, and radio and transmission systems from the Jewish state. The termination of these defense contracts poses problems for army units which utilize this equipment.
At the end, the police will receive probably not the type of ammunition they prefer, and our pilot will delay the training because the Israeli firm will not update our current aircraft, and probably our industry will have difficulty to find new companies and markets for those missiles and multi-rocket launchers.
Several European countries have partially banned arms sales to Israel, but only Slovenia in July and Spain in September extended the ban to purchases. Experts say these total suspensions should be followed closely, as Europe is the main market for the Israeli defense industry.
On estime en 2024 qu'Israël a exporté pour un total de 14 milliards approximativement donc de dollars, et environ la moitié de cette somme serait due à des exportations à destination des États européens. Les États européens achètent aux fabricants d'armes israéliens notamment des missiles anti-aériens, des missiles anti-chars, des drones, des munitions pour des armes légères et de petit calibre, des systèmes électroniques, donc tout de même des choses assez variées. Parmi les États qui achètent ces équipements à Israël figurent notamment la Roumanie, l'Allemagne, le Danemark, l'Estonie.
For analysts, it's difficult to predict if other member countries may also decide to suspend imports. Israeli defense firms have branches and subsidiaries in Europe, but don't always sell their weapons directly through them. Sometimes, as is the case with Madrid, it may be a matter of companies joining forces to develop these technologies in Europe.
Europe's steel industry has said its survival is at stake, warning of mass layoffs unless Brussels introduces urgent protection against US tariffs and Chinese imports. German union IG Metall says companies such as ThyssenKrupp face thousands of job cuts. The sector supports around 2.5 million workers across the European Union. The European Commission's Vice President convened an emergency summit with unions and industry leaders after US President Donald Trump imposed up to 50% tariffs on steel. Surplus from China is also flooding the market and driving down prices. The Commission says it will propose fresh protective measures at next week's European Parliament session in Strasbourg. Two people have been killed in anti-government protests in Morocco that have filled streets for a fifth night in a row. The so-called Gen Z protests, driven largely by internet-savvy youth, have emerged as the country's largest in years. Demonstrators are protesting what they say is corruption and underinvestment in government and public services. Despite lacking official authorization, protests are spreading to new areas, underscoring growing anger at what participants call rampant corruption and neglect of schools and hospitals. The Interior Ministry said 409 people were arrested since protests began on Saturday, with 263 security forces injured along with 23 civilians. Authorities said 142 police vehicles and 20 private cars were damaged.
Pope Leo XIV has weighed in on U.S. politics for the first time since being elected in May, commenting on hot topics roiling the domestic scene, like abortion and immigration. The first U.S.-born pontiff pointed out contradictions surrounding the anti-abortion debate and questioned what it really means to be pro-life.
Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. So they're very complex issues.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt disputed the concerns raised by the Pope.
I would reject there is inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the United States under this administration. There was, however, significant inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the previous administration. This administration is trying to enforce our nation's laws in the most humane way possible, and we're upholding the law, and we're doing that on the behalf on behalf of the people of our country who live here.
The Pope's comments came after Chicago Cardinal Blaise Cupich nominated Illinois Senator Dick Durbin for the Lifetime Achievement Award for his work on helping immigrants. Durbin's nomination drew heavy criticism from conservative U.S. bishops, who rejected him due to his strong support for female abortion rights, which goes against the Vatican's official position. Durbin has since declined the award, causing Cupich to call for greater unity and less polarization in order to advance the role of the Church in the U.S. political scene. Swiss glaciologists say glaciers in the country have faced enormous melting this year due to the effects of global warming. Scientists say Swiss glaciers have experienced a 3% decline in total volume in 2025, the fourth largest annual drop on record. Including this year's figures, experts say Switzerland, home to roughly 1,400 glaciers, the most in Europe, have declined by 1/4 over the span of only 10 years. They noted that since they began measuring glaciers, more than 1,000 small ones have already disappeared. Glaciologists say the decline is due to winters with low snow depth, combined with summers filled with heat waves. They also say the decline in glacier mass will surely have multi-industry implications, affecting energy, tourism, and farming sectors. Teams on the ground added that the glacial recession started earlier than usual this year, with snow reserves being almost fully depleted by early July after an exceptionally hot June. The retreat is also having significant impact on the country's landscape, causing mountains to shift and ground to become unstable.